Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to be here with us today and allowing us the opportunity to share with you a little bit about Go Ape. We are really excited to tell you who and what Go Ape is and what we can do for both Baltimore County Parks and Recreation and the Baltimore County community as a whole. I thought a good way to start would be to do some introductions. My name's Becky Staley. I am the Park Partner Manager and General Counsel for Go Ape. I've been with Go Ape for about 5 years now. It is near and dear to my heart. It was the vehicle that allowed me to leave my law firm life. And a large portion of my job is working with park partner entities, ensuring we have good lines of communication to maximize benefits for both parties and make sure we're exceeding expectations. On a personal level, my family and I really enjoy outdoor recreation, obviously, and we spend a lot of time at a nearby lake and hiking trails in local parks where I live. Also with me today is Jason Budden, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, my name is Jason Budden. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Go Ape and also very excited to be here with everyone. I've been with the organization for about 4 years now. My role with the organization is mainly connected to our operations, safety, construction, and managing those departments, and then also working very closely with Becky in terms of our park partner relationships. I am also a Maryland resident, born and raised here. Went to college in Baltimore, grew up going to various parks around the state, but also very much in Baltimore County. My mom, as a kid, for most of my childhood, worked in Cockeysville, so it was always great to be able to get up and go and enjoy a day out, stuff that we've done for years. So appreciate the time and look forward to talking through a lot about Go Ape and answering any questions that you have.
Thanks, Jason. So who is Go Ape? Go Ape is an industry leader for aerial ropes and adventure course. And we have 14 locations across the U.S., with 2 additional coming to public parks in Texas. Most of our locations are created through public-private agreements. And of those 14 locations, the 2 closest to Baltimore County are in Bear, Delaware, which is in Lums Pond State Park, and then our other nearby location is at Rockville Regional Park in Rockville, Maryland. A little background about Go Ape. Go Ape has been in the industry for about 2 decades now. We've served over 10 million guests and worked with over 30 park partners, with the majority of that being in the UK with our sister company. In 2009, Go Ape USA was founded with our flagship location at Rockville Regional Park. We were one of the only high ropes course operators that work exclusively with public park entities to bring environmentally friendly activity to the parks. To really understand who Go Ape is, you need to know a little bit about our mission, our employees, and our guests. Go Ape's mission is to inspire everyone to live life adventurously. And we're able to achieve that mission by adhering to certain values. And those are like to do the right thing, to provide our guests with a tremendous guest experience, and to be socially and environmentally responsible. The preservation of the environment is really key to who and what Go Ape is. In order for us to be successful, we need to ensure that the environment and the parks in which we operate continue to thrive. We really focus on the forest and it being a key component of your adventure experience. So without that environmental preservation, we really can't succeed. Additionally, to know who Go Ape is, we need to talk about our employees. Our employees are really the heartbeat of Go Ape. Most of our employees have been with us from the beginning, and we promote primarily from within the company. The employees really keep us honest and adhering to our values. While they come from many different backgrounds, all of our employees seem to share those environmental and social responsibility values, the doing the right thing values. We have employees with backgrounds currently as biology majors, environmental and resource management majors, and outdoor recreation. So those employees really are allowing us as the face of the company to present those values and excel at meeting our mission of living life adventurously. Our guests are also a very important part of who Go Ape is. Without our guests and knowing that we are doing exactly what we need to be doing to allow them to benefit from our organization and from the services that we provide, we can't be successful. We measure that through our feedback, which I'll share a little later in the presentation with you, and also through guest surveys. They allow us to see whether they are reaping the benefits that we seek to provide to our guests. And we conduct these surveys on an annual basis at each of our locations. And sometimes if we have a new activity or we want to make an operational change, we'll conduct a survey. If we're exploring the possibility of a new location, we will often conduct a survey to see what the feedback on it is. And so when the conversation started about possibly exploring a Go Ape location in Baltimore County, we conducted a small survey of our users that have been to our courses in the past, who had zip codes in Baltimore County, to see what the interest level was. And it was overwhelmingly positive. We found that 97% of those that we surveyed had a positive experience with Go Ape when they were there. We found that 98% of them would like to see Go Ape in Baltimore County, and 99% felt that it was a positive activity. And so we were really confident that this was a good idea to continue exploring, and that Go Ape in Baltimore County could be a positive benefit for the community there. So that's a little bit about who Go Ape is. Jason's going to talk some about what we do. And understanding what Go Ape is, I think it's very important to understand what Go Ape is not. Go Ape is not an amusement park. We do not look to create like highly commercialized centers in the parks that we work in. Instead, what we try to do with our designer is find ways to blend in with the forest and enhance the natural features. And we work hand in hand with our public park entity partners in creating that design. Obviously, we are putting structures in the trees, but we are able to do that in a way that is aesthetically appealing and not like a highly commercialized look to it. To really understand what we do, it's really best seen in person, which is difficult to do in this kind of setting, but often in video is the next best thing. So we have a short video to play for you that gives you just a little image of the Go Ape activities that we have and allows you to see firsthand what we do. So I'm gonna play that. Now I'll turn it over to Jason, who's going to talk a little bit more about Go Ape, the activities.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, so the two main activities that we execute across the country are Treetop Adventure and our Treetop Journey. And ultimately, with these, what we call eco-educational outdoor experiences, the goal is to get people outside, having fun in a safe experience, connecting with nature. And both of these activities are able to accomplish that. So the Treetop Adventure is geared towards a more experienced adventurer, have to be ages 10 and older, and an average height of 4'7". And ultimately, what guests will do is they will come to a central hub and then access the course through stairs or a ladder. And as part of that, once they're in the trees, they're going to be traversing through a variety of loops. So generally 4 to 5 loops up in the trees, going from crossing to crossing, that finishes with a zip line back down to the forest floor. Similarly, the Treetop Journey is an aerial adventure course. So bringing guests up into the trees. It's going to be a little bit lower to ground. The challenges in terms of the crossings or the elements are going to be a little bit easier. And the zip lines aren't going to be nearly as long. So it's a great introduction for beginners, for kids. I mean, it really is geared towards families, and that's an all ages activity for guests to be able to participate in. Another component of what we do is construction. Course construction is really key, and we're very lucky to have our head of construction, who's a former arborist with over 20 years of experience. That gives us a really important internal perspective to make sure that we keep the natural environment at the forefront of our building and maintenance process. And he's done a tremendous job over the years in terms of staying focused in terms of that area. We use sustainable sources for timber. And just to be clear, as Becky mentioned, we are very far from an amusement park. There are no motorized elements. So really, when you compare it, there's limited moving parts and no mechanical elements that are associated with our courses. In building our courses, there's kind of in the industry two connection methods. One is called through bolting, which involves the insertion of a large bolt through the tree. And just to be clear, this is not what Go Ape does. We follow a compression attachment, which is basically bracing that in a sense kind of squeezes the tree, a light squeeze on the tree. And this ultimately allows us to adjust over years for tree growth. In addition, our courses are constructed so that we can remove all elements. We as an organization make sure that in any of these relationships that we develop, that we take a leave no trace approach to our park partnerships. So in order to be able to construct our courses, we need to design the courses. And we design the courses to make sure that they are fully blending in with the forest and the existing surroundings. So one key element is that we do not impede or obstruct in any way with trail use and public spaces. So all trails that are currently open to the public in the park, any open areas would not be obstructed as part of a Go Ape course design. The only area requiring exclusive use is really those central platforms, kind of that hub area where the experience will start. Landing areas where guests come back down to ground after their zip line, and then the aerial tree lines, which again are up in the trees, so at height, so not interfering with anything down on the ground and a guest participation. As an organization, an environmental focus is extremely key for us. And as mentioned, our head of construction was a certified arborist, so he takes great pride, as do all of us at Go Ape, in protecting the trees. They're the foundation upon which our organization is built. So we take a very diligent approach to caring for the natural environments that we call home. We also utilize third-party arborists who do as part of this relationship, they would ultimately do an initial inspection if we are approved to move forward. And then they would do a yearly inspection in order to keep an eye on developments over the course of time. Now, in addition, which is incredibly important, is that our site staff is also keeping an eye on trees and escalating any concerns. They're deadwooding in order to maintain the health of the trees. And we share any information that our arborists or our internal staff finds with our park partners. And if necessary, we will take significant actions to mitigate any potential issues. So, we've been really excited that over the years, we've been able to save trees due to these proactive efforts. And one good example is from our course in Bear, Delaware, one of the closer courses to Baltimore County at this time. We had a course tree a few years back that was struck by lightning, and our site staff worked with the park's nature council and ultimately had our arborist review the tree. And ultimately, we've been able to care for and save that tree. It's still a part of our course trees, and it's actually thriving. And the Nature Council has said that it would have been removed if we weren't monitoring and inspecting it on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. Our site manager up there, Bryce, has a degree in biology, so she takes a lot of pride in these efforts, and we appreciate that our site team is passionate about the environment in which they are calling home. Stewardship projects are also a really important component at Go Ape. It speaks to our mission, and our staff is very active in supporting local park partner projects, including tree plantings and park cleanups. So we do those regularly throughout the year. We also have a partnership with the Arbor Day Foundation, and we've helped them to plant thousands of trees in a short period of time. It's really important to our mission to have an approach that values stewardship, and we actually provide our staff with dedicated hours to use toward volunteer activities. So it goes from kind of a top-down, bottom-up approach, everyone on board with giving back and making sure that again, speaks back to our mission. Safety as a component is really at the core of who we are and what we do. We have internal daily and monthly inspections, and then quarterly audits of all of our safety equipment. We adhere to and often exceed ACCT standards. That's the Association for Challenge Course Technology. And then we have an annual third-party inspection, which is followed by any course maintenance that is required based on that inspection. We monitor everything, across the board through all of our sites, all the way down to how many Band-Aids we provide to our guests and staff. Our operations team reviews these details on a weekly basis, and what we're looking for is identifying any trends across all of our sites so we can continue to make improvements and keep safety at the forefront of everything that we're doing. We also work closely with the ACCT, including sitting on various committees to review best practices and be aware of any additional industry-based trends. And then the last thing that I'll point out, which is on the slide here, our incident and injury rates are really stellar across the industry, and also in comparison with team sports like soccer, baseball. We take that very seriously, and I think it's a testament to the effort that our staff has put in over the years, and continues to put in on a daily basis, that we're able to execute such a safe activity that still has so much fun and enjoyment involved for the guests that participate. And I'll hand it back over to Becky to kind of close us up.
Thanks, Jason. So now that you know a little bit about who and what Go Ape is, I want to talk about what can Go Ape bring for Baltimore County, the community, and Parks and Rec. Over the last 2 years, I think a lot of us have realized, and there's been a renewed appreciation and understanding of the importance of health and wellness and outdoor recreation and our public parks. We hear that from a lot of our park partners. That there is a renewed interest in the environment and the parks in which they operate. And so what can Go Ape do? I think we're in a really unique position to provide some benefits to the community that can address these issues. For physical wellness, we make an excellent source of alternative exercise. If you're not a runner like myself, not necessarily interested in team sports or biking, Go Ape is another means of exercise and outdoor exploration. You have to work through the obstacles and hike through the trails. So it's really a great form of activity in the outdoors. For mental well-being, we know how important that is, and it's even more important for our young people today. Go Ape has proven to be a confidence-building activity. We see it as one of our most common feedback comments is what a confidence booster it was, both for younger participants and older ones. We hear about the fact that they have overcome a fear that they've had their whole lives by going on the course. Personally, I've seen it myself. My daughter is 7, and we encouraged her to try the Treetop Journey course. She's a little small for her age and is easily intimidated by new things. Doesn't necessarily have a fear of heights. So it took a while before she was comfortable to go on the course. And after she completed, she was just ecstatic and felt like a renewed sense of confidence. And now has had no hesitation about going on 4 more of our Treetop Journey courses. So I've seen it myself, and we see it every day with our participants. It also provides a means of team building and working together and learning to achieve together, which is really important for the younger and older participants. The other benefit that comes from Go Ape is an environmental understanding. We look to, as part of their experience, grow an appreciation for the environment, teach them about environmental preservation. One of the aspects of our course and our course design is we will work hand in hand with our park partners to develop signage, and we will gear that signage specifically to the park in which we're located. So we'll get information about native species, maybe some animals in the park, or any key characteristic that they would like to focus on and create. Our head of creative is excellent at creating signage that can be read and pointed out during their experience. We've also recently begun some STEM activity, which has activity sheets that participants can work through as they're going through the course. And that focuses on, again, environmental education and some geometry, sometimes a little bit of biology. So it's just another way of getting kids excited about learning and get the community as a whole excited about the environment. Growing that appreciation of environmental preservation and an appreciation for parks is at our core of what we try to do with our participants. This slide shows some feedback that really talks and speaks to those benefits. You can see that some of our participants really enjoyed and got the benefits that we were looking to provide them out of their experience. There was a focus on and an understanding that there was an environmental education through this process. The other benefit that I think is really important for our participants is the community building, the family building. Families can come out together and learn and grow together through this activity. They can achieve something together. Sometimes we have groups come out together, small groups come out and participate on the course and work together and get to say and experience that over and over again. Another thing that we focus on is being socially responsible and doing the right thing. And so in that, we do want to inspire everyone to live life adventurously. And so we look to ticket donations to reach the underserved communities and those who may not always get the opportunity to experience green space. We work together with our park partners in identifying those groups that need the ticket donations or would benefit from them. And we also have found groups that we work with every year in bringing them out on our course. Some examples of those are Wounded Warriors, City Kids, the YMCA, Make-A-Wish Foundation, and many more. And so that is just another avenue that we're able to reach different people and allow them to experience the park system and the environment as a whole. So to conclude, those are just some of the benefits that come out of a Go Ape facility and that could be brought to the Baltimore County community. It would be an excellent opportunity, in our opinion, to provide some additional avenues to get outside and really enjoy and learn more about nature. We'd be very excited to be part of the community and looking forward to continuing to explore that more. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to take those.
Okay, thank you, Becky. A couple of points of clarification before we open it up. And again, as promised, we'll open it up with Councilman Kach. So a couple of points of clarification. This is not a done deal. So let me be clear. I think there's some confusion circling around this. It's not a done deal. We haven't signed any agreements or anything. As we promised the community, we would have a community input process. And so that's what this is. And, you know, I'm happy that everyone is here tonight. This is not about Go Ape at Oregon Ridge. This is about Go Ape in Baltimore County. Again, because this is not a done deal. We are exploring the opportunity. And in our minds, we are thinking we're bringing everyone in early. So a lot of the answers we won't have for you because there have not been any extensive studies or anything, you know, kind of along those lines. We are at the very beginning. I will share that our team visited Lum's Pond this past Tuesday, and we were pleasantly surprised with what we saw. We actually got lost going to the site because the signage wasn't overly bold, but you know, that's kind of another story. I think we have some questions in the chat And I will open it up, or we'll open it up for Councilmember Kach to give his comment.
Thank you very much, Roslyn. I sent my question because I was just concerned that only questions that were in the chat would be allowed. So I'm happy that you're going to open it up to let people who are participating, people who have seen the film, to ask questions. I just want to go back a little bit. I've been in office for a long time, not when this park was purchased by Baltimore County, but this park wasn't purchased by chance. It was a group of people who got together and made this happen with the help of the state and the county. And the park has specific goals, is meant to be a nature centered area. And so we're very concerned about the trails, if there's going to be any interference or changing of the trails. I'm very interested in the nature center. We need to have the agreement and cooperation of all those groups who have been so involved in Oregon Ridge over the years. I think it's imperative. So many have given so much in the way of contributions, volunteer time, etc. And if there are concerns, if there is an indication that the Go Ape is going to compromise this natural setting, is going to mean that we're going to lose a number of trees or whatever in order to accommodate Go Ape, I think we need to move very slowly. I do want to ask the director, I know there's $8 million in the budget for Oregon Ridge. Am I right about that?
You are correct. I believe we're up to about 10 million now.
And what is the purpose of the 10 million?
So we know that Oregon Ridge is quite outdated. For example, our nature center does not have air conditioning. The lights are not luminous, I'll say. The lodge does not have air conditioning either, and is rather dated. So we don't know how much money it's going to cost for what comes out of the master plan, but the idea is that that will be a high dollar amount. So the money is not necessarily earmarked to anything at this current time. We do know that we're also going to need a new playground. We're challenged with the playground there. The pour in place, which is the material that is the foundation, kind of the rubbery surface, is beyond its useful lifespan and cannot be patched anymore. And several of the pieces of equipment on the playground, we're having a hard time getting replacement parts for. So the most immediate need is for the playground to be replaced. We're trying to hold off on that because the master plan might result in the playground being placed somewhere else. So I hope that answered your question, Councilman.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Those structures are dated, need improvement. And, I guess people like me who have become so accustomed to air conditioning, I know we'd really miss it. But I am just so concerned that people who have put so much time and effort will have a meaningful role in the Oregon Ridge Park. And when the study is complete, will the study be involved in this Go Ape decision at all?
So are you referring to the master plan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, right. The one that's being developed now, yeah.
So if I'm being completely transparent, which I like to do, the Go Ape came about before we actually had a master plan consultant on board. So, the processes were kind of, moving fast, and we thought the master plan process would have started a little sooner than it did. So we're now at, the point where the two met at the same time. So we don't want this part to be part of the master plan per se, which is why we're keeping this separate and apart from the master plan. And that's why we're not billing it, and it's not being shared as this is going to be at Oregon Ridge, because we're looking at the whole county. So I don't think that would be fair for us to say, okay, let's put it here and here's what's going to happen. We're not there yet. We have several properties where we have space, so we're looking countywide. Additionally, I think we can all agree that there are pretty much two sides to Oregon Ridge, as shared by the council, which is our partner there. There is the nature side, and then there is the kind of active side where we have the band shell and we have the lodge and the playground, which is a little bit more active. That doesn't mean nature's not on the other side, but there's kind of like a quiet nature setting, and then a side where it's a little bit louder depending on what activities we have there. So, I think we certainly, want to preserve, the integrity of both sides. So that's something that we'll look at too.
So does that mean, and just one more question, that Go Ape could possibly be approved and be built before the master plan is made, becomes a reality?
Well, it depends on where it is in the county. Where if we decide to move forward with Go Ape and we put Go Ape at XYZ Park, that's not Oregon Ridge, then it's possible it could be before the master plan is complete.
So there are other locations in Baltimore County that you're looking at for Go Ape?
That is correct.
And can you share that with us?
No, because we have not gone to the community yet and shared that information. So,
okay.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse because it's not a decision or a discussion we've had internally. And I think it would be fair to share it with those park users beforehand.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Great, then I think we're ready to proceed with questions, right? And one just came in through the chat, which I think maybe you might like to address first, Director Johnson, asking if the county has signed a contract with Go Ape.
Okay, I thought I announced that earlier, but I will say it again. We do not have a contract with Go Ape. It is not a done deal. There is, I don't know how to say that there is no contract. So, yeah, there is no contract.
Great, thank you. And then to start us off, we have from Linda Davis asked, will the chat comments be included in the recording that we're going to post to the website?
No, they will not be. What we are going to post to the website is the presentation. And that's typical of what we do at all of our recorded meetings. We post the presentation. We don't post the comments. And so that's a good way for people miss the information. They can review it.
Thank you. And then we have a question, I think about the introduction that there are sometimes money-making parts to parks, and somebody commented that they're all nonprofits but not commercial activities. So just asking about that in reference to Go Ape.
Excuse me, and I can handle that question. And while a large majority of the activities that occur on county property that generate revenue are tied into a number of nonprofit partners that we work with, there are commercial for-profit companies that operate activities on our parks. Some recent ones have been Aloha Tournaments, Corrigan Sports, Eastern and Ultimate Water Sports. Additionally, the county did have its own ropes course at one point in Baltimore County. located at another location in Baltimore County. I may have been an instructor there with a little more hair than I have now at that time. But at one time, Baltimore County did operate its own ropes course, high ropes course here in Baltimore County as well. So while we do a lot of activities with our nonprofit partners, there are also many instances where we partner with for-profit companies to provide activities.
Great, thanks. And then we had several comments and questions about sort of the survey results that Go Ape presented about customer satisfaction and customer interest in Baltimore County. I think just wondering about what that survey consisted of.
Sure. So the survey was specific to Go Ape users because that's who we have the easiest access to. And we were looking to Go Ape users that had zip codes in Baltimore County, given that that was the location that we were potentially exploring. So we wanted to try to get some feedback from prior users from the county in order to kind of gauge from them what their interest level would be in having a Go Ape within Baltimore County, acknowledging the fact that it has its limitations with the fact that it is prior Go Ape users.
Great, thank you. And then questions about surveying residents themselves. So from Ralph Brown asked, did you ask people who use Oregon Ridge whether they want a Go Ape there? And more broadly, since this is not necessarily going to be at Oregon Ridge, asking Baltimore County residents.
So again, this is the community input, one of the community input processes. So, we are getting feedback now. Again, to do a survey specifically for Oregon Ridge users, I think would be premature because the site has not been determined.
Great. And Mark Schaub asked, there's a similar facility in Savage Mill. How did Baltimore County choose to partner with Go Ape in particular, and would it make sense to evaluate competitive plans?
So when looking, we looked at a company that had a footprint and a track record with Recreation and Parks departments as far as their offerings, as far as working with the Recreation and Parks departments, and someone who really had a history with being environmentally conscious and really trying to protect the trees. I think there's an implication here that Recreation and Parks is not environmentally friendly, and that we don't appreciate trees, and we're not for the environment, when actually the antithesis of that is how we feel at Recreation and Parks. So that was part of it. We also wanted a company who could withstand the test of time. So that was how we originally started a conversation with Go Ape about their history and what they've done in other jurisdictions.
Thank you. Dr. Carol Newell asked about safety. She asked, what was the equipment problem in May 2021 for Go Ape that led to the closing of 25 sites in England while they worked on the problem?
So my understanding is there was an injury that resulted from a manufacturing issue in Go Ape UK. It's important to understand they are a sister entity. We are separate organizations, so they do have their own operation team, their own operational protocols. So some of that information that we have is slightly limited, but from what we know of the incident, there was a manufacturing, and it was not a product of the Go Ape equipment or the Go Ape operational policies or practices. And the sites were shut down out of an abundance of caution to make sure any repairs that needed to be made could be made that used the manufacturing item on their courses. And my understanding is they cooperated fully with the UK, like third-party entities, to make sure any steps that they wanted done were taken.
Thank you. Then we have questions about from Catherine Morris and Ralph Brown asking if facilities would be adjacent to existing trails or potentially over trails.
So again, we have not determined a location. We have not determined a site, a space. But I will share when we visited Delaware, there were trails beneath the area where the Treetop Adventures and the zip lines were. And it was nice to see when we asked Go Ape, they shared that they had forged some of the trails and some of the trails were already existing. And the ones that they had forged, they maintained, which is something that was a little bit exciting to us. And additionally, we saw some hikers who were there hiking very quickly. And we did approach them and said, hey, you know, is it noisy when you're walking, when you're hiking? You know, what is the impact? And they're like, no, we hear screams. There's screams of joy. But for them, they appreciated hearing it. So if I'm being completely transparent, that's what was shared with us.
Thank you. And then how many acres are part of this course or would be part of a typical course?
Becky, that's you.
Yeah, it can really vary depending on the design of the course and the available space. The design model that we are looking for in future locations is what we call hub and spoke. So it has like a central platform from which guests start and then the loops come off of it. So it's a more condensed version, usually about 5 acres or so. But again, most of that is in the trees. In terms of ground space, again, you have your central platform and like a zip line landing area. Outside of that, all of the structures are in the trees, and so we don't require exclusive use of 5 acres. It is only the landing areas in the central platform that we would need to kind of cordon off from the general public. Outside of that, as Roslyn mentioned, the trails are open to the public to come through, explore, and enjoy the experience with our guests. And then we have a few people curious about the county's liability. What would be the county financial liability if there was an accident? And
so typically with all of our leases and contracts, the vendor, the user, the nonprofit organization would have to indemnify the county. So the county would not have liability for the particular activity. And so we're fortunate that we have pretty good attorneys. And so I don't play one, so I can't get into the details as far as that's concerned. But that is something that we do talk about and we have talked about and discussed with our law department.
And I can share that's pretty typical of our agreements in other locations.
we did have a couple of people asking about an accident that happened in Delaware and what the implications of that accident were, I guess, afterward.
Yeah, in 2016, we did have a tragic accident on one of our courses. Go Ape at the time fully cooperated with all third-party entities that investigated as a result of that accident. It was determined that Go Ape was not at fault for what occurred. The third-party inspector issued a report. As part of that report, he indicated that the company's execution of our processes and procedures were comprehensive and some of the best that he'd seen. And he also, one of his key recommendations was actually that we not rush to any conclusions or make any reactionary adjustments. So there was an incident. It was not something that Go Ape was determined by third parties to be responsible for.
Great, thank you for your answer. I just wanted to pause for a moment here just to say that we have had a lot of questions coming in, which we're glad about, but we may not have time to address all of them in this meeting. So one question is, will written answers be provided to questions that cannot be answered within the time limit of this meeting?
Let's just see how far we get. We'll try to go as long and as far as we can.
Great. And then somebody asked what the, Judy Harding asked what the noise level from participants would be in a park.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I'd say it'd be similar to a pavilion with, a family reunion or a playground at the park. There's really no constant noise, definitely nothing from the equipment. And overall, it wouldn't greatly impact the noise within the park to any noticeable level. We regularly hear at other parks that they don't even know that we're here until you get right over next to the course. And at that point, it's just a lot of smiling and laughing that generally we hear.
Great, thank you. Deborah Spice Kleinman noted that a lot of ropes courses have an educational and cooperation game component, and asked if that is part of the experience for Go Ape, or if it's primarily the zip lining components.
Yeah, so we include both. So on the ground, like as part of the experience, we have educational signage that allows guests to better understand the park environment that they're in. So that could be about the trees, about the ground cover. It could be about the wildlife. We highlight the wildlife quite a bit in terms of that, so that as they're waiting to go up into the trees, they're able to read that and learn a little bit about the natural environment. And then it is not just zip lining, very, very much want to make sure that that is clear. There are zip lines that bring you back down to ground, but the rest of the experience is what would be considered a ropes course. So crossings, climbing elements, different ways to get through the trees that challenge you and help you to kind of navigate that path before you zip line back down to ground.
Thanks. And then we have a question about the impact on birds at the site, concerns that there would be disruption to bird wildlife.
Yeah, it's a great question. We take that very seriously. We know it's their home too. We've actually shut down parts of our course during nesting season to protect owls and hawks. So that is a common practice, and we're very comfortable doing that. We want to make sure that we are not disrupting them, just like they would not be disrupting the guests. We also factor this into our designs and construction timelines to make sure that we're ultimately limiting the impact. We after the courses have been built, we see a lot of wildlife living throughout our courses. And ultimately, our staff really enjoys their existence. There's also scenarios like, for example, at our course in Cleveland, we have some protected areas near the course that we leave completely and fully undisturbed. And ultimately, they serve as an educational opportunity to help our guests better understand the natural environment in the park. So, that's part of what's highlighted within that educational content.
Molly, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Catherine Morris asked about the impact of having a Go Ape site on the level of traffic based on average attendance on a peak day.
Yeah, it's a great question. We would not anticipate much additional traffic. I should say we wouldn't anticipate any additional traffic. There may be additional parking spaces that are taken up within the park. Generally, from a kind of a spacing perspective, we use an online system for reservations. Guests can also call to make a reservation or come to the park and walk up, and if we have availability, we will get them out into the experience. We put guests in groups of about 12 to 15 out at a time, and that's on a busy day every half an hour. So that's possibly a busy Saturday, but generally you're not going to see more than 60, 75 people participating at a time. And generally our groups come in smaller segments of 3 to 4. So that would possibly be 20, 25 cars over a 2 to 3 hour period. So not a large impact at all.
And then we had a clarifying question. What is the ACCT?
Yeah, great question. So the ACCT is the governing body of the kind of the adventure course industry. So we work really closely with them. Becky's actually on a committee. We have others within our organization that are on committees that more than anything help in sharing best practices across the landscape. It's called the Association for Challenge Course Technology, so ACCT.
Great, thank you. I'm just reading through a couple more questions. Sorry, one moment. The question from James Curtis: how much clearing of the forest is required to set up a course?
So,
Yes.
okay, I'll let you go.
Yeah, so really limited. You know, we've over the years have really perfected this process, and we have a great design team who works closely with our head of construction and with the park partner in terms of designing any course elements. We do everything we can to use the course trees that are in place and basically navigate our path so that we are not needing to clear any space. So I would say extremely limited. For example, in Cleveland, we just put in a Treetop Journey course, and we did not have to remove any trees associated with that build.
And when we visited the Delaware location, there were 5 trees that had to be removed, is what was shared with us. So I think there's a thought that, you know, trees will be cleared in order to create this course, and that is not the case at all. And that's not something that our department would support. I will also share too that I saw a question in the chat that I worked there in Prince George's County. I worked in Prince George's County. That I worked with Go Ape. Go Ape was not a discussion while I was there. I think they were acquired after I left. But I will share that I did know that they were in Montgomery County, and it's a bi-county agency, but I didn't have any relationship with Go Ape there either. But I did call my Montgomery County contacts to ask them what it was like working with Go Ape, what has been the experience, are they environmentally friendly? So I called people I trusted, and they gave me the inside scoop, and they said, yeah, actually they were. And they had arborists who actually go out and look at the trees, something that we don't necessarily do here in the county. But with their partnership with Go Ape, the arborist comes out yearly and looks at the trees. And you know, tries to inject, like, if there are any diseases or anything, they also assist with that. When we were in Delaware, we asked how many trees have been lost since they started. And there was 1 tree that was lost to fungus, so not because of the work or because of the adventure, the ropes course or anything along those lines. So that was helpful to know too. There was also a tree that was struck by lightning, and Go Ape has been assisting to try and save the life of that tree as well. And so we saw that firsthand.
Great. And we had one question from somebody who has visited the Go Ape in Delaware and had a good time. They were wondering what kinds of activities would be available at a potential site in Baltimore County.
So initially what we would be interested in, I mean, it all depends on ultimately the park. But at most of our newer locations, we like to put in both the Treetop Adventure and the Treetop Journey courses that Jason described, because those are, you know, kind of our core experience, and it ensures that people of all different ages are allowed and able to participate. So I think that would be the lead in terms of activities for the park.
Great, thank you. And then Catherine Morris asked if you could address the financial arrangements that would be made between Baltimore County and in the county.
I can take that one. So we don't know the financial arrangement yet because we're not that far in our conversations, but I will share the Go Ape model is for the department to get a percentage of the sales. So that's something that we would certainly be interested in whatever park where Go Ape is. If we have Go Ape here in the county, we would use that funding would be restricted, and it would go back into that specific park.
Great, thank you. And then a question about costs on the other side for participants. A couple of people asked about how much it is per participant for a family of 4 with 2 teens and 2 adults, and then if there are special rates for families and students.
Yeah, great question. So we do offer discounts throughout the year for students, military, first responders, also for families. We run a lot of kind of 4+, what we call our 4+ discounts, where you come out with 4+ individuals and you're getting a discount. So that's not specifically family focused, because we know families come in all different shapes and sizes. But the goal is to allow those families and those groups to be able to gain a discount. Our pricing ranges, so it varies by activity, anywhere from $10 up to $60, $65. As Roslyn mentioned, we're not that far along in order to be able to determine what price points would be for a Baltimore County location. We also do work very closely with the park to make sure that we are providing free tickets that can be utilized by the park for the underserved community. In order, as Becky mentioned, our goal is to have everyone be able to get out and live life adventurously. So we want to make sure the opportunity is open. Additionally, we work throughout the year to make donations. So we donate tickets to various local nonprofits that can be used to raise money for their nonprofit and or given away for those participants to be able to come out. Some groups that we've worked with in the past include City Kids, Make-A-Wish, Special Olympics, the Wounded Warrior Foundation organization. So always looking for those opportunities. It definitely fits into our mission and our goals.
Thank you. And then we have another question. Has Go Ape ever looked at a potential site and decided not to pursue it? And if so, why? What makes a Go Ape? What makes a site suitable or unsuitable for Go Ape?
That's a really good question. In terms of whether we've looked at sites, I mean, we're always looking at sites, so it's a little bit challenging to answer, but I think that we've considered sites in the past and not move forward. I think the key in terms of deciding on a good location is the park itself, the quality and health of the trees that we're going to have to design, and making sure it's a good fit for the activity. Closeness to highways is also important, and easy access. But really, the primary consideration is the park and whether Go Ape is a fit for it, and the design will work well there.
Thank you. And Mary Jane Shanks asked, how many accidents have occurred in your parks? I think Go Ape parks.
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, I think in terms of serious accidents, very minimal. I mean, I think we've covered them here tonight. We classify things differently in terms of accidents and incidents. So, for example, we keep track, as I mentioned earlier, of Band-Aids that are handed out. So that goes down as an accident, kind of a category 0 accident within our system. So, the way that we classify it, there are definitely, more than just the larger incidents that we discussed tonight. But as for, I think the core of the question, the larger incidents, we've pretty much covered those on this call this evening.
Great, thank you. And then Keith Rosenstiel asked what percentage customers are repeat customers. And then we have 2 other people who've asked what percentage of users are subsidized. So just curious about your customers. Yeah,
that's a great question. So in terms of repeat users, I would say within the same year, it's probably only 5 to 10% of guests that come back as repeat users. Year over year, we see quite a few guests return, so maybe closer to 20-25%. And some of that is that, it's not the experience, not going to the gym, it's not, going canoeing or kayaking. It is an experience that for some people is a bucket list item. Being able to get up in the trees, see the forest from a different perspective, going zip lining and having that adrenaline rush. But the guests that we do see, have a tremendous experience, and we see, terrific reviews. We have launched a membership program more recently, which does give guests an opportunity to buy what we call adventures in bulk. So they can basically sign up to come an unlimited number of times throughout the year for the cost of what would be about 4 to 5 visits. So we do see some guests, not many, but we do see some guests who take advantage of that offering. A lot of the times it's parents with young kids who come out every week, especially during the summer. We also see individuals who use it as their gym, coming out to get a good workout in the trees completed. In terms of percentage that are subsidized, I don't know that I have that off the top of my head. We do, between discounts, between, groups where we're providing free tickets, donations, it's a significant number. I would say that the majority of guests are not necessarily paying full price in terms of their participation at Go Ape.
And then we have a question of how did this idea come about? Yeah, where was the interest coming from? This is from Mary Jane Shanks.
It was a suggestion that was given to us, and so we are investigating the suggestion. Similarly to what we do with other suggestions that we receive.
Great. And I know it's very early in the process, but we have a question from Jacob Smith. If approved, how soon could Go Ape open in Baltimore County?
So, I mean, I can answer in terms of once actual formal approval comes about and there has been a contract signed. Generally, what happens then is our designer comes in and works with the park partner to create a design that fits best with the park, and then we have those designs engineered and go through permitting. So you're looking at from the moment the contract is signed, somewhere between likely a 6-month period, 6 to 8 month period.
Great, thank you. And then we have a couple different variations on a question of just if you could clarify why this is not included in the Oregon Ridge master planning process. We just have several questions asking about that.
So again, it hasn't been determined that that Go Ape will be coming to the county, first of all, and neither has it been determined that Oregon Ridge would be the site that Go Ape will be at, or that will have a Go Ape course.
Great. And then a couple questions about the process by which you might choose a site. Are there other ones currently under consideration? And then what process might you follow to determine which sites you might pursue for a Go Ape site?
Again, so I want to share that we have not decided upon a site. Once we have more internal conversations about a site where we think it will be better, or where we think it's better for these reasons, and we're further along in a process, if we decide to move forward, we will certainly share that information. It would be premature for us to say, oh, here are the sites we're looking at. We haven't had internal conversations. We don't have it down to a top 5 or a top 2 or anything along those lines. Once we get to that point, we will certainly share it.
Sorry, I'm just looking through the questions right now to make sure I grab a good one, one that we haven't addressed yet. Okay, what would go into the selection of a site within the park? What kinds of natural resource inventory surveys or other environmental concerns would you be considering when choosing a site within a park?
I think that's a Go Ape question. What do you all look for?
Again, the thing we do is we look at the trees, topography, if there is an ability to create a really one-of-a-kind zip line route based upon the trees and the topography. An initial evaluation would be done by our third-party arborist, who would kind of go around and after we have a kind of very initial draft of a design, they would look at the trees that are involved in that design and give us some feedback in terms of the health of those trees, their ability to support the course. So in terms of environmentally, that would be the process that we would undertake.
Thank you. And then we have somebody wondering how much money would Rec and Parks generate from this partnership?
Again, we don't know because we don't have a contract and we haven't even started discussing terms. I will share one of the pieces that we did discuss though. Should we move forward? Should we decide on a location and determine, to install Go Ape here in Baltimore County? How would we be able to address the needs of, kind of our most vulnerable as far as nature deficit and all those other pieces? And so we've had preliminary discussions about our PAL children being able to attend for free at some point. We've talked about wounded warrior programs. We've talked about working with at-risk youth, particularly at the site, those youth who have self-esteem problems, because this is really a confidence builder. so we have had those discussions, and Go Ape has been very open to being able to subsidize for those users. We've also talked about corporate events. We would not ask Go Ape to subsidize corporate events, but we have the pavilions there. We have the lodge that corporations will rent. So that's one reason why we're like, okay, Oregon Ridge might be an option. We have some other parks that we're looking at that might be an option as well. But we feel like corporations would get their people kind of outside, and this would be another piece for people to do when engaging in a park.
Thank you. And Keith Rosensteel asked about publicizing this meeting. Why weren't meeting notices posted at Oregon Ridge Park? And why is this meeting, I think, public or not in person and at one of our sites?
Good question. So a couple of things. So one, we didn't post it at all of our park locations. That's not something we typically do. We get it out through the Office of Community Engagement. We post it on the county website, and we post it on our website along with our Facebook pages and other locations. Our staff oftentimes will print out flyers and post them, but this was not Oregon Ridge, Go Ape at Oregon Ridge. So how do you select a site? Additionally, during COVID, we've noticed that we've had larger turnouts at our meetings, Rec and Parks meetings, when they've been virtual, because it's another barrier that is removed for people to be able to access and actually attend community meetings. So we have a history and a track record kind of that. For our tennis and pickleball meeting, we had 97 participants, which is unusual for us. So we tried to continue to remove barriers for all those participants.
Thank you. And then we have a good follow-up to that question. If this community input meeting doesn't have specifics, will there be future community input meetings to discuss specifics, if there are?
Absolutely. We didn't want to wait any longer until we had any more details, because we felt you waited long enough and there were a lot of rumors and inaccurate pieces of information circulating out there. So this is us getting to you early. I hope you can see how far along we are not in the process, because we don't have the answers to the very detailed questions, because we're not there yet, because we haven't made a decision, and because we're still exploring and having discussions.
Thank you. And Donna Newworth asked if there would be axe throwing as part of the Go Ape site.
We do have axe throwing at some of our locations. Whether it would be at this site would be up to future conversations and the desire for that to be there.
Great. And then we have people ask, Ralph Brown asked that where we could cite this, given that Rock Creek and Lums Pond, the two closest sites, are almost twice the size of our largest park.
Can you repeat the question, Molly? I'm sorry.
I'll read it out, word for word. Rock Creek and Lums Pond are almost twice the size of Oregon Ridge. Where would you possibly place it where it won't change the nature of the park?
So I will start, and then Becky or Jason, you can give the details. So the footprint is not the whole size of the park. The footprint is very small in the park. So, I don't think we need to look at, a site. I think Love's Pond is about 1,800 acres. Oregon Ridge is about 1,100 acres. So it's not tree for tree, acre for acre. So I will let Becky and Jason share, because I think they said it's usually about 5 acre imprint.
That's correct. So the footprint of the course is about 5 acres. And again, most of that is in the trees. So in terms of ground impacts, it's much less than that. And we are in parks of all different sizes. So some of our locations are smaller than the Lums Pond and Rock Creek location.
And then I was just alerted that Councilman Kach, were you waving your hand hoping to speak? I will unmute you right now.
Thank you very much. It's somewhat of a selfish question because of some state recreational activities that are in northern Baltimore County. It's created a very unsafe situation on Moncton Road. So I just want to ask if my wife and I live close by, if we were to show up without a reservation, could we still participate? Could we still use the course, or do you absolutely need a reservation?
Great question. So we encourage a reservation in advance. There is a process in terms of providing information in terms of what to wear, wearing something that might get a little dirty, signing an online waiver, previously COVID policies and other information that would be helpful. So good to review in advance, and also to make sure that we're not fully booked. While that is rare, that does occur from time to time. So we hate to see guests come out to the course and then not be able to get on. But generally, in most scenarios, we would be able to accommodate and get you and your family out onto the course. If you just show up at the cabin, you may need, like if you show up at 12:05, you may have just missed the 12 o'clock brief. So we may have to wait to get you on until 12:30 or 1. And at that point, you can enjoy the walking trails and other opportunities within the park before we're able to get you up in the course.
Yeah, I would just hate to see a situation where the word got out that you don't have to make a reservation. All you have to do is show up and use it. Because I assume I've done the bungee jumps. I've done what is it? Whitewater rafting. Of course, you sign your life away. You have no rights, nothing. Is that the kind of statement that you sign when you use Go Ape? I'm not criticizing you for that, but I know you got to protect yourselves. But do you sign the same kind of document you would for whitewater rafting and for bungee jumping, which I did like 4 years ago?
There is an assumption of risk and release of claims waiver. I'm not sure exactly what the one you look like
Yeah, well,
was,
yeah.
but it provides a lot of information and makes sure that people understand, what they're about to participate on. And so it's an educational aspect as well as a signing off on acknowledging that what you're about to do. And we do also have like a training aspect. So all of our participants go through a 30-minute like training where they get comfortable with their equipment and they go through an on-the-ground version of the course where they get to practice it. And then before they move to the next site, we tell them that, you're about to be on your own. If you're not comfortable with doing that or move forward, you can go back to the cabin and get a full refund. So we just try really hard to make sure our users are aware and comfortable in what they're about to do, even after they've had an opportunity to practice it. And I think just on your question about the walk-ups, Jason, I think you've talked before about the percentage of walk-ups that we get. It's pretty small. Most people for this type of activity plan in advance because it's, like you mentioned, it's kind of a bucket list. So we do get walk-ups, but they're not the primary mode of participation.
Yeah, I would.
Yep.
Sorry, sir. I would say that on average, we're less than 5% in terms of our walk-up traffic.
Good.
And most of that are individuals who are already at the park who decide, hey, we'd love to stick around for a little bit longer and give this a try.
Because this all northern Baltimore County is in preservation, and one of the things that we don't like to do and that I don't support are widening of roads. So I hope that the roads that are in place are adequate to handle the traffic. And that's I'm sure that's part of what you're going to consider if you should decide to pursue it. And I'm just so happy that you're requiring reservations. And I'm very happy that only 5% of the people show up unannounced, because otherwise I'd be very concerned about being overrun with people. And I think a lot of people that are present today know what's going on Moncton Road with the tubing and on the gunpowder, the hike bike trail, the park. It's become a real nightmare as far as traffic goes. So thank you.
And just to speak on that a little, that's a common concern with a lot of our public park entities. And we haven't had any situation arise after we've moved into a location where they've had to do any kind of changes to the roads or traffic. We do a great job with our reservation system. So hopefully that alleviates some concerns.
Thank you.
Just one more comment. We really appreciate the pre-booking as well. It makes our site staff's life a lot easier knowing what to expect. So that's why we highly encourage that, but still try to accommodate those guests that do show up, even though it is a small percentage.
Great, and we have a two-part question next. Will there be a follow-up public information meeting before any decision is made? And if Oregon Ridge was decided as the preferred site, would Rec and Parks wait to make a decision until after the master plan is completed?
Yes and yes. I just want to reiterate again, one of the things that our department has worked very hard on in the last 3 years is doing what we say we're going to do. I think you'd be very hard pressed to find someone who said something that we said we were going to do that we didn't do. Might take us a little bit longer to get to it, albeit if I'm being truthful, but we are trying to get to it. So, our community meetings, our sharing of information, we're not trying to hide anything. If we sound like we're not sure, it's because we're not. So I just want to be clear on that. This is us coming to you as soon as we can and sharing the information that we have right now, and kind of where we think we may go.
Great, and then we have a question about the Go Ape facilities. Are all activities essentially above ground?
So the adventure course is the Treetop Adventure and the Treetop Journey, which is really our core activity. Some of our locations we have added things like axe throwing, which is a small range that just allows people to spend some time throwing an axe at a target. And outside of that, we also recently added what's called Forest Escape. It doesn't have any structures or anything like that with it. It's just a like a challenge, time challenge event. But the core activity of Go Ape, which is the aerial ropes course, is all primarily aerial.
Thank you. And then I think this is also a question for Go Ape. How have you addressed parking issues previously?
So, I mean, as part of our analysis, when we move into a park, we consider parking. So we really haven't had to, after we've opened, really address parking issues. It's functioned rather well at all of our locations to date. So I guess my answer would be that we look to address it before moving in and creating and developing the site.
Thank you. And would Go Ape host corporations, for example, for challenge retreats?
We do, yeah. If Jason wants to speak to this one.
Yeah, we do work with corporations. Most of that, I wouldn't say it's necessarily for retreats. It's more for a day activity. So coming out, going up in the trees. We consider it great team bonding, and I think that's the main use from a corporate perspective. We do not hold any overnight activities, not part of kind of our main function.
Thank you. And how do you choose what trees you use based on the tree's value to wildlife? And how are you able to not damage the flora and fauna with an activity like this?
Yeah, great question. So, I guess first we work with a third-party arborist in order to do a full review of all of the trees, not just the coarse trees, but also the surrounding trees as well, to make sure that there's no implication. They also provide various recommendations in terms of the environmental health around our course. So that might include mulching trails and or other efforts to protect tree roots and other plant life that would grow. From a wildlife perspective, we take that very seriously. So we would work with the park in order to determine if there are any species, birds, other wildlife that we should be aware of and or protecting as part of where we would be from a design perspective. So it's all taken into account in terms of that initial process so that we don't run into any issues down the line. As I mentioned, we have had scenarios where there have been, nesting owls or nesting hawks on trees that we are utilizing within the course. And during that period of time, during the nesting season, we will close down that area of the course. So basically, we will divert guests so that they are not able to access that area of the course in order to give the wildlife their space to make sure that they are protected as part of that process.
Thank you. And we have a question. Can you let me know where I'll be able to listen to this recording? I'd like to hear Go Ape's presentation.
Sure, Molly, I think you know the answer to that question, but it will be on our website, and we'll post a link on, I think we can post the link on Facebook. We've had some challenges with being able to post the link there, but it will definitely be on our website for sure.
Yeah, and it should be on the county YouTube page. Is Go Ape willing to cancel days if there are large events at the parks?
We
Yeah,
did
absolutely.
ask
So
that- okay, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Roslyn.
Well, we did ask that question too, because if we're looking at one of our park sites, we quite often have large events, and Go Ape was okay with us blacking out certain dates. It depends on the event though for us, because for some events, it would be great to have Go Ape there and operating, because people can kind of book in advance and then, do a twofer. But at some events, it simply just would not work. So they were open to both questions when we asked them, but Jason and Becky.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you hit it spot on. Like, we are very flexible when it comes to that approach. We have a couple of different park partners where there are various events that take place. In some cases, we will stay open and we will work with the event operator to provide our service as a kind of an additional benefit or value that they could add on to their experience to basically just maximize their time that they're already at the park. We also see it where, parents may be participating in a race or, another event, whatever it might be, and they'll work with proper supervision to have their kids participate in Go Ape, just like they would take them over to the playground. There are also other scenarios where we will trim our activity. So might only operate the Treetop Journey or only operate a small segment of it. We've also done it where we just have a few staff there that give examples, have fun in terms of showing how our harnesses work and, other ways to just get them involved and understand who Go Ape is and what we do and our role within the park. So again, very flexible when it comes to events at whatever park we would end up in.
Thank you. And has the county consulted naturalists working at the nature parks?
Sure, I can take that one. I'm Benjamin Porter. I'm the Chief of Nature, Environment, Ag, and Programming for Baltimore County Rec and Parks. And I'll say I was really impressed when we went up to the Delaware site with sort of the way that the course was set up, the way that it was integrated into the natural environment. We took a number of park staff member, including park manager and park naturalist for Oregon Ridge, as well as some other programming staff on the site visit, and had a really positive experience overall. And one thing I'll say, coming from a nature background, as many of you here know and know me from many days at Oregon Ridge, something that really impressed me was the way in which the trees were not actually drilled into or had hard connections, and they utilized the compression system. And we made a point of asking about, what is the process for adjusting that, allowing the trees room to grow. And I found it to be really interesting and seems like a successful procedure.
Thank you, Ben. And I also have to add that while we did go and do a site visit, we did not participate. So we did not get a free, ticket to participate in Go Ape. I just want to be clear on that.
Thanks. And then would it not be better for a private company to purchase the private property versus utilizing a public park? I guess a question about Go Ape's model.
Yeah, so I think the model is to support public parks. That's part of our mission, is to really provide an avenue of support, and we do that both financially and through some of the benefits I spoke to earlier. And it's functioned really well for us, and all of our partners seem to feel that it's a success, and it's just another way of bringing park visitors and growing that appreciation for our park partners, and an understanding of the environment, in addition to a revenue stream.
And what environmental impact assessments and permits are needed for a Go Ape site?
So that can vary. So I do a lot of the permitting for our locations. Obviously, it depends on the jurisdiction in which it's located. Typically, we will see building permits being required. Sometimes there are specific aerial adventure course operating permits. I can tell you in Maryland, there is not currently one, but they are working towards it. And Go Ape actually was involved in some of the commenting towards those. So at this time, my understanding would be that the primary permit required would be some type of building permit.
Thanks. And then who initiated the communications between Baltimore County and Go Ape?
Again, I think we're kind of getting into duplicate questions here, but as was shared earlier, we reached out to Go Ape.
Thank you. And then I thought that the presentation stated that the trees are drilled into. Could you clarify this detail if I misheard?
Yeah, so the main component is a compression model, which basically connects the what we call our platforms through bracing underneath the platform. So it's not visible to the guest. It's not a trip hazard. It's underneath the platform that that basically goes around the tree and squeezes it. There was mention of through bolting. That is not the method that we take. We use that compression method. So that we can come back and adjust the bracing as we have those yearly and even from site inspections, but mainly those yearly inspections that are completed by a third-party ACCT certified inspector to determine if anything needs to be adjusted. That's also part of the arborist inspection as well, to make sure that we are treating the tree appropriately and giving it room to grow.
Thank you. And we do have a couple questions that are coming up several times. So just sort of asking again, two people asked about percentage of users that are subsidized or get free tickets.
Yeah, so I unfortunately I don't have that exact number, and I think it also varies from location to location. But we do provide discounts on a regular basis. Some way in which we do that for general admission guests is we have an email newsletter. So as soon as you sign up for that email newsletter, you receive a discount for your first time out. Once you've come to the course, we also provide you with what we call our reward certificate, which includes a 20% discount on your next visit. So, you know, trying to give people an opportunity to save money the next time that they visit. It also can be shared with someone. It's not specific to that individual. So it's a way for them to share it as a gift if they maybe aren't ready to come back out, for someone to get a discount. We also have ongoing discounts that are offered to various groups, including students, teachers, first responders, military. So we make sure that that is in place. And then we work with various groups, especially underserved communities, in terms of providing free tickets and or donations to local nonprofits to make sure that those are available and able to be used for groups that may not be able to afford our activities. We definitely want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to visit and ultimately live life adventurously at Go Ape.
Thank you. And then we have a question about a build. Would there be a building built in the forest as part of the site? How big? Would there be a road to it with restroom access? If you could just explain a little bit about a building.
So again, it depends on the park that you ultimately end up in. Typically, one of the things we look for are existing restrooms, accessible restrooms. Many of our locations, what we have incorporated is I believe it's about 500 square foot log cabin. So it's like a kit log cabin that we use to hold our equipment and check in our guests and that type of thing. And that's put, in an area near the forest. We've done different types when it's been requested. Some of our park partners have kind of buildings that are in a theme, and at times we use existing buildings in parks. At our location outside of Chicago, we are an existing building that they have. So it does vary, but I would say almost universally we look to use existing restrooms.
Thank you. And then I know you've spoken to the impacts on the trees. We have a question. What about removing branches, shrubs, and plants, and the impact on soil compaction and vegetation trampling at Go Ape sites?
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so we will try our best to use the current trails that are in place without getting in the way of the public that would be coming through. We found that to be very successful at the majority of our parks. If necessary, we will create kind of additional pathways. They're very short, small pathways to basically get us back out to the open space, and in some scenarios that's necessary just to have a kind of a safety point of access for our staff. But I would say that is very limited. We do not, so we generally use already downed branches to line any trails so that there is kind of a clear path that guests should be following. We also will make sure that there are additional efforts that our staff takes in terms of any areas that need attention, so we can work with the Nature Council or park partner in order to address any of those concerns. But we are not, running through the woods, trampling over plants. We do not remove plants as part of this unless it's, absolutely necessary from a safety perspective.
Thank you. And then one person wrote, my understanding was that Go Ape had already evaluated Oregon Ridge and that was the preferred site. Is that correct?
So I did look at Oregon Ridge, but there was no complete evaluation, and it wasn't determined that that would be the site.
Thank you.
Becky or Jason, did you all have anything to add?
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have not had a construction team or designer. Becky and myself and our CEO have been to the park. And that was, more than anything, I'm very familiar with the park, having grown up in Maryland, having been to it. My wife still come regularly to hike. We love Oregon Ridge, but there is no decision made. There's also no direction from us in terms of a necessity to be in Oregon Ridge or even a preference to be in Oregon Ridge. We defer to the park in terms of where they feel is the appropriate fit, and we were happy to follow that process.
Thank you. And what is the county's process for considering the environmental impacts of a Go Ape installation?
So we work with our partners at property management. I think as everyone on the call is probably aware, we don't maintain our parks, property management does. So we would coordinate and work with them as well.
And then has the county talked to competitors of Go Ape?
We have looked at, but we have not talked to anyone.
And what is habitat and rare/threatened or endangered species assessments conducted by Go Ape?
I would say that, we do not take that on. Generally, we will work with the park partner to determine, and the Nature Council to determine if there is anything that we need to be aware of. And we were happy to work around that as part of any build, any construction that would be executed.
Thank you. And who takes the reservations? Who collects the money? Are county staff involved? Park staff involved at all in that process?
No, we would not be involved in that process at all. I think our staff are busy enough with the work they currently have, and so we would not take on the operation of another organization. At least we try not to. We do take on a lot of the operations of our partners, such as our recreation and nature councils, but this is not something we would wish to take on.
And then a clarification, did Go Ape say that there could be up to 12 people coming through per half hour? That's could you clarify how many people?
Yeah, so we so what we call our brief size or session size is generally 12 to 15 per half hour on a busier day, so on a Saturday. During the week, so I guess to step back, our main season is kind of March to November, but definitely work with the park partner in terms of determining the right approach there. And then during the majority of the season, we are only open at select times, just based on interest from guests. We vary the amount of time that we put guests out. So on busier days, it would be every half an hour. On slower days, it might be every 2 hours.
Thank you. And does Go Ape make charitable contributions to local conservation organizations? And if so, could you clarify?
Yeah, so most of that is in the form of ticket donations, but we have also made monetary donations in the past. We work with both local and national organizations. One national organization that we have recently made a donation to is the Arbor Day Foundation, which is obviously at the core of protecting trees, supporting the planting of trees. So we have a great relationship with them, but also do look to work with local organizations as well.
Thank you. And would Go Ape activities discourage white-tailed deer from using the park in which it's located?
We haven't seen or heard any feedback of that nature in the past. I imagine no more than a playground or a pavilion would.
And will this discussion part of the meeting be available to watch afterward, or just the presentation? And I do believe it's just going to be the presentation. That's what we will share out on our website and the YouTube page. And if this was located at Oregon Ridge, would Go Ape be using the existing trails?
So I don't think that's been determined yet. We haven't looked at any specific area within the park in terms of the design, but we would work with the park in terms of figuring out the best approach there.
And what training is required for Go Ape staff?
Oh, extensive training. Yeah, that's a great question. So we have both online and in-person training that all staff goes through. And then it really depends on what level you're going to be in terms of working with our guests. So we have training from, our cabin staff who might just be greeting guests and working within our booking system, to instructors who are going to be providing safety briefs, and then all the way up to our site managers. And there's various levels between there, who are rescue trained. They're also trained to inspect the course. All of our instructors go through multiple weeks of training. They're also reassessed on a regular basis. So that is part of our process in order to make sure that not only are they following the training from the beginning and that they're checking all of the necessary boxes associated with being ready to deliver any safety training to guests and protect our guests throughout the process. But then we also check them throughout their experience. And that does not matter whether they've been with us for 1 year or they've been with us for 8 to 10 years. It's still part of that process in order to make sure that they are following our processes and procedures.
Thank you. And more questions about your staff. How much do they make per hour, and do you offer health insurance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for our full-time staff, we do offer health insurance. That is part of the benefits that we offer. For our part-time staff, it varies hourly based on the location, and at times different variables associated with cost of living and or travel that they may be taking out to the course. So how far are we from the general population and where we're located. I would say in all cases, we are above minimum wage and generally are offering a competitive wage in terms of our hourly staff.
Great. If Go Ape were to leave a location, what would the remaining impact be, if any? I don't know if this has happened.
So when we leave, it's again, it depends on the specific park situation. If we were to leave a park, and they would like the course removed, we would remove the course and then remediate the area. And typically, we have an agreement as to what that looks like. So I think that's a function of the agreement ultimately, but the goal would be to leave as little trace as possible.
Great, thank you. So we are coming up towards 8 o'clock. I want to make sure we cover at least this one more question. Would the County Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability be part of the environmental impact evaluation? And are the Go Ape representatives aware of the bill passed by the County Council requiring this for any activity that might affect the forest?
So yes, DEPS is one of our partners. As I mentioned earlier, we will work with our partner departments. And so they are certainly one of our partner departments we work with very closely. I would say Go Ape is not aware of the county council code or rules or regulations because they have not taken an in-depth look at the county, and we have not shared with them what it means to be here in the county yet, because again, we're not that far along and we haven't made a decision. But as we move farther into the process, if that's the decision we decide, the way that we decide to go, then we would in fact share that information.
Thank you. And we are coming up on the end of our time for questions. I was just going to ask, is the county exploring any other commercial companies as full-time residences of our park?
Not at this time. No, we are not.
Okay. Thank you. And we did just want to have an opportunity for those who are on the phone to be able to ask a question, since they do not have access to the chat. To reduce speaking over each other, I'm going to unmute one at a time. Some people may not actually have a question to say, so I may, unmute and mute back. But I'm going to go to the first number that's on the call, which is beginning in 410 and ending in 78. You are unmuted if you have a question. And I think we're getting a little bit of background noise there. So we'll go to the next one, which is starting in 410 and ending in 37. If that's your number, you are unmuted. And then we have 3443 numbers, which I'll unmute all at once. If you are calling in with, sorry, one moment. If you're calling in with a 443 number and you do have a question you'd like to ask, please go ahead.
Am I on?
Hello?
Am I muted or am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Hi. Yes. My question is, because I think that Oregon Ridge Nature Council and everyone who worked so hard to make Oregon Ridge what it is in terms of the forest side and the nature side, really was looking out for stewardship of the natural environment, answering the needs of the local community, but also looking out. I used Oregon Ridge when I was a city resident with my children, and it's a really valuable natural resource. And if I hear the company say that there's not really a high repeat level and that they like to be near the highway, I'm not getting a really strong sense of a community mission. I'd like to know how Record Parks is addressing a truly community-based mission and stewardship of natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So I guess the question is generally about community-based and conservation of our resources.
So a couple of things. One of our roles at Recreation and Parks is to try and expose people to as many opportunities as possible so that they can determine their interests and determine their likes. So, I think the more experiences you have, the more you determine what you're interested in. So whether it's boosting your self-esteem, whether you're getting out to Oregon Ridge Park or whatever park, if the decision is to move forward, whatever park we're talking about, then you're out to the park and you would have never been there before. And hopefully you're coming, you're spending some money in that community, you're stopping, you're buying gas, you're eating there, you might make it a weekend to stay and visit Baltimore County and, rent a hotel room or book a hotel room. So, I mean, I think there are many effects of it. If you look in Baltimore City, they have HRP school there as well. And so that's something, that people do, but it's something that visitors do. So I think there are many opportunities all around for people to be exposed to different activities and events.
Great, thank you. And I do think that we've heard from everybody who wanted to speak on the phones, but if there are any other questions from the phones for people from Go Ape, you are welcome to go ahead. I haven't muted those on the phones. We're just looking for any questions that you might have for Go Ape. All right. I'm not hearing anything more from the phones other than a little bit of background noise. So I think we went through a lot of questions tonight. Director Johnson, do you want to summarize anything?
I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I'd like to thank you for your excellent questions, your well thought out questions, and your honest and frank questions. That's what we wanted to hear tonight. And we wanted everyone to have a chance to give input, give feedback, and ask questions and get answers. So I think we've accomplished that. And I appreciate everyone for being here and having an open mind and listening to the presentation and listening to kind of where we are in the process. With that being said, I will close it out and everyone have a great night. Happy Friday, Junior, and have a great weekend.